1. We're diving into a classic beauty that's up for grabs on Craigslist, a 1966 Buick Skylark. This vintage ride is priced at $15,000, and from what the seller tells us, it seems like a solid deal. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. The seller mentions that the Skylark runs and drives great, which is always a good sign. The top is in perfect condition, both functionally and aesthetically. Under the hood, you'll find the original 300 V8 engine, paired with a 3-speed TH350 transmission. The dual exhaust system adds a nice touch, giving the car a sweet, throaty sound. It's important to note that while the seller describes the Skylark as a really nice cruiser, they also admit that it's not a show car. This means that there might be some minor imperfections or signs of age, which is to be expected from a vehicle that's been around for over 5 decades. The odometer reads 100,000 miles, indicating that this car has seen its fair share of adventures. On the maintenance front, the seller has recently rebuilt the carburetor and replaced all the vacuum hoses, which shows that they've put some effort into keeping the car in good running condition. The title is clean, so you won't have to worry about any legal issues when transferring ownership. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic cruiser with a bit of character, this 1966 Buick Skylark might just be the ride for you. The seller seems sincere in their description, acknowledging that it's not a perfect show car, but still a great option for those who appreciate vintage automobiles. If you're interested, the seller encourages you to call or text them for more information or to arrange a test drive. Who knows? You might just be cruising down the street in this timeless beauty soon enough. 2. We're taking a closer look at a 1971 Ford Torino Spring Edition, also known as a halo roof, that's currently up for sale on Craigslist. The seller is asking $12,000 for this classic ride, and from what they've shared, it seems like a fair price considering the car's condition and the included extras. Now, let's dive into the details. Under the hood, you'll find a 302 V8 engine paired with a C4 automatic transmission. The car also features power steering, but no power brakes or air conditioning. The rear end is an ATAR with 2.79 gears. The seller has recently replaced the coil, voltage regulator, alternator, and battery, which is a good sign that they've been maintaining the car. The seller is upfront about the car's condition, mentioning some common issues for these models. There are rust bubbles starting to form under the vinyl top, and rust is showing at the roof to rear quarter panel seam. Bubbles are also starting to appear on the rear wheel wells. While these issues may be a concern for some buyers, the seller's transparency is appreciated. One of the most appealing aspects of this deal is the inclusion of various parts. The seller has all the components needed to switch over to power brakes, except for the rotors. These parts alone are worth over $850. Additionally, they have a complete set of performance front-end parts, including SPC upper control arms, Global West lower control arms, and adjustable strut rods, Grab-A-Track 620 GR coil springs with poly insulators, Open Tracker roller spring perches, and KYP front shocks. These parts are valued at around $2,000. Other miscellaneous parts, such as a 9 rear housing, door latch and operating rods, fan shroud, screws and bolts, are also included in the sale. The seller is even throwing in a 1970 GT hood, although it's described as a little rough. To help with any repairs or modifications, the seller is providing Repro 1971 shop manuals. The seller mentions that they are downsizing due to an upcoming move and can't take everything with them. They even joke that their wife and kids won't let them leave the family behind to keep the car. This adds a personal touch to the listing and shows that the seller is motivated to make a deal. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic 1971 Ford Torino with some extra parts and don't mind putting in some work to address the rust issues, this could be a great opportunity. The seller seems sincere in their description and is willing to provide additional pictures and videos upon request. They even offer the option to separate the car from the parts to lower the price below $10,000 if the buyer isn't interested in the extras. If you're ready to take on this project, it might be worth reaching out to the seller for more information. 3. We've got a real treat for you. A 1976 Chevrolet El Camino Classic that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $14,900, and from what the seller tells us, it seems like a fantastic deal for a classic ride with some serious character. First off, let's talk about the heart of this El Camino, a rare factory 400 cubic inch V8 engine paired with an automatic transmission. This powerhouse is sure to turn heads and get your adrenaline pumping when you hit the gas. But that's not all. This classic also comes with factory air conditioning, power windows, and locks. It's got all the bells and whistles you could want from a 1976 model. One of the coolest things about this El Camino is that it comes with its original Monroney window sticker from 1976, along with the original registration and other paperwork. This is a rare find and adds to the car's overall value and authenticity. The seller also has 3 keys and the original owner's manual, which is a nice bonus. Now, let's talk about how this baby runs. According to the seller, the El Camino runs and drives great, and they get compliments all the time. That's no surprise, considering the car has been well maintained with new tires and brakes within the last year, and it has recently been serviced and passed the state inspection. The odometer shows 89,983 original miles, which is relatively low for a car of this age. The El Camino comes with a free and clear, clean Texas title in hand, so you won't have to worry about any legal issues when transferring ownership. The seller mentions that the car has upgraded rims, but they also have the original hubcaps that came with the car when it was new. This gives you the option to choose the look that best suits your style. If you're thinking about financing this purchase, the seller notes that the NADA Classic book value on this El Camino is much higher than their asking price. This means you're getting a great deal on a classic car that's likely to appreciate in value over time. Overall, if you're in the market for a vintage ride with plenty of power, style, and authenticity, this 1976 Chevrolet El Camino Classic might just be the one for you. The seller seems sincere in their description and has provided plenty of details about the car's history and condition. 4. We're taking a look at a 1968 Ford Falcon that's currently for sale on Craigslist. The seller is asking $8,500 for this classic coupe, and while it may have some imperfections, it could be a great opportunity for the right buyer. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Falcon. The seller is upfront about the fact that the car has some light hail damage, which is visible in the photos provided. While this may be a drawback for some buyers, it's important to appreciate the seller's honesty about the car's condition. They're not trying to hide anything, which is a good sign. Now, let's dive into the specs. This Falcon is equipped with a 6-cylinder engine and an automatic transmission, making it a great choice for those who prefer a classic ride with a bit of pep. The odometer shows just 52,000 miles, which is relatively low for a car of this age. The paint color is a nice green, which adds to the car's vintage charm. One thing to note is that the seller is firm on their payment terms. They're only accepting cash, and they won't respond to any phone calls, emails, or text messages. This is likely due to issues with scammers in the past, so it's understandable that they want to protect themselves. If you're interested in the car, you'll need to visit during their normal business hours to take a closer look. While the hail damage may be a concern for some buyers, it's important to keep in mind that this is a classic car with a lot of potential. With some TLC and maybe a bit of bodywork, this Falcon could be a real head-turner. Plus, at $8,500, it's priced fairly for a vintage coupe in good condition. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic 1968 Ford Falcon and don't mind a bit of hail damage, this could be a great opportunity. The seller seems sincere in their description and has provided plenty of photos to give you a good idea of the car's condition. Just remember to bring cash and visit during their business hours if you're interested in taking this beauty home. 5. We've got a real treat for you. A 1984 Chevrolet Corvette that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic sports car is priced at $8,000, and from what the seller tells us, it seems like a fantastic deal for a one-owner Vette in excellent condition. First off, let's talk about the significance of this particular model year. 1984 marked the first year of this iconic Corvette design, making this car a true piece of automotive history. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 5.7-liter V8 engine paired with an automatic transmission, ensuring that you'll have plenty of power at your disposal when you hit the gas. Now, let's dive into the details that make this Corvette stand out. The seller mentions that the car still sports its original silver paint, which is a testament to how well it's been cared for over the years. The interior is described as being like new, suggesting that the previous owner really went the extra mile to keep this car in top shape. One of the coolest features of this Corvette is the Targa Top, which allows you to easily remove the roof panel and enjoy the wind in your hair on those perfect summer drives. The seller also notes that the car has good tires, so you won't have to worry about replacing them right away. Perhaps the most impressive aspect of this Corvette is its ownership history. The seller states that it's a one-owner vehicle, which is incredibly rare for a car that's nearly 40 years old. This suggests that the car has been cherished and well-maintained throughout its life, making it a great choice for collectors or enthusiasts who appreciate a car with a story. The odometer shows 115,000 miles, which may seem like a lot at first glance. However, for a classic sports car that's been around since 1984, this is actually quite reasonable. The seller mentions that the car runs and drives great, so those miles don't seem to have taken too much of a toll on its performance. At $8,000, this Corvette is priced to sell. The seller does mention that the price is negotiable, so if you're really interested in making this beauty yours, it might be worth seeing if there's some wiggle room on the final price. 6. We've got a real bargain on our hands. A 1974 Dodge Dart that's up for grabs on Craigslist for just $1,500. Now, before we get too excited, let's take a closer look at what this car has to offer and whether it's worth your hard-earned cash. First off, the seller states that the car runs and drives, which is always a good sign. Under the hood, you'll find a slant 6 engine, which is known for its reliability and durability. These engines may not be the most powerful, but they're definitely workhorses that can keep going for miles and miles. The seller describes the car's condition as decent for its age, which suggests that it's not a perfect show car, but it's still in good shape considering it's been around for nearly 50 years. The odometer shows 99,987 miles, which is pretty high, but not unexpected for a car of this age and with this type of engine. One of the standout features of this Dart is its yellow paint color. While the seller doesn't provide many details about the paint's condition, a bright yellow classic car is sure to turn heads wherever it goes. Just imagine cruising down the street in this vintage beauty. You're bound to get some appreciative nods from other car enthusiasts. The seller also mentions that the car is registered, titled, and insured in their name, which is a plus for potential buyers who want a smooth transaction. And if you're in a state with strict emissions regulations, you'll be happy to know that this Dart doesn't require a smog check. Now, let's talk about the price. At just $1,500, this Dodge Dart is an absolute steal. Sure, it may not be in perfect condition and it's got a lot of miles on the odometer, but for a classic car with this much character and history, it's hard to beat this price. You could easily spend thousands more on a car in similar condition, so if you're on a budget and looking for a fun project car, this Dart is definitely worth considering. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's important to do your due diligence before handing over any cash. Make sure to get a thorough inspection of the car, including the engine, transmission, and undercarriage, to ensure that there aren't any major issues lurking beneath the surface. It's also a good idea to take the car for a test drive to see how it handles and to listen for any unusual noises or vibrations. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic car that won't break the bank, this 1974 Dodge Dart is definitely worth a closer look. With its reliable slant 6 engine, eye-catching yellow paint job, and bargain price, it's got a lot to offer for the right buyer. 7. We've got a real gem on our hands, a 1973 Chevrolet El Camino that's up for grabs on Craigslist for just $8,000. Now, before we dive into the details, let's take a moment to appreciate the seller's honesty and transparency in their listing. First off, the seller describes the car as a very solid project that's 95% complete. They recently purchased it, but need to sell it to fund another project, a '69 Impala. It's always refreshing to see a seller who's upfront about their reasons for selling and isn't trying to hide anything. Under the hood, you'll find a Board 350 engine paired with a Turbo 400 transmission, which is a classic combination for an El Camino. The seller notes that the car runs well, which is a big plus for any project car. They also mention that they're giving it away at this price, suggesting that they believe it's a great deal for the buyer. The car is described as having no back fees and being currently registered, which is important for anyone who wants to drive it legally on the street. The seller also notes that there's no rust and that all the trim is present, which is a big plus for a car of this age. One of the most exciting aspects of this El Camino is that it's set up to race, but is still street legal. The seller describes it as a raw build with a gear drive, suggesting that it's been built with performance in mind. And if you're worried about the car's mechanical condition, don't be. The seller mentions that it's currently in a hot rod shop getting its carburetors rebuilt and tuned. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's important to do your due diligence before handing over any cash. While the seller describes the car as being in good condition, it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection to ensure that there aren't any hidden issues. It's also worth clarifying with the seller exactly what work has been done on the car and what still needs to be completed. Assuming that everything checks out, this 1973 El Camino could be an excellent opportunity for someone looking for a classic car with a bit of edge. With its powerful engine, race-ready setup, and clean overall condition, it's got a lot to offer for the price. And with the seller's transparency and willingness to negotiate, you can feel confident that you're getting a fair deal. 8. We've got a real piece of American luxury on our hands. A 1979 Lincoln Town car that's up for grabs on Craigslist for just $2,250. Now, before we get too excited, let's take a closer look at what this car has to offer and whether it's worth your hard-earned cash. First off, the seller is upfront about the car's condition, noting that it runs but has some rust. This is important to keep in mind, as rust can be a serious issue for older cars and may require significant repairs down the line. However, the seller also notes that the car has a clean New York title, which is a plus for anyone looking to register and drive the car legally. Under the hood, you'll find a 400 cubic inch V8 engine paired with an automatic transmission, which is a classic combination for a luxury car of this era. The seller specifically mentions that the car does not have a sunroof, which may be a pro or a con depending on your personal preferences. Moving on to the body, the seller describes it as straight, which is a good sign for a car of this age. The interior is said to have no rips, but is dirty, which suggests that it may need some cleaning and detailing to bring it back to its former glory. The car also has newer tires and Dayton wire wheels, which add a nice touch of style and could be a selling point for some buyers. Now, let's talk about the price. At $2,250, this Lincoln Town car is priced to sell, but the seller notes that the price is now firm and the car is being sold as is. This means that you'll be responsible for any repairs or upgrades the car may need, so it's important to factor that into your budget. It's also worth noting that the seller mentions that the car has not been smogged, which could be an issue depending on where you live. In some states, cars of a certain age are required to pass emissions tests before they can be registered and driven on the road. Be sure to check your local laws and regulations before making a purchase. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic luxury car with some patina and character, this 1979 Lincoln Town car could be a great option. Just be sure to do your due diligence, get a thorough inspection, and factor in any potential repair costs before making a final decision. 9. We've got a real gem on our hands, a rare 1974 Pontiac Ventura that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This two-door coupe, Y27, is priced at $8,900, and from what the seller tells us, it seems like a fantastic opportunity for someone looking for a unique project car. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Ventura. The seller describes it as being in its original condition, which is always a plus for classic car lovers who appreciate authenticity. The car comes with a number-matching 350 V8 engine that has only 81,000 original miles on it, which is relatively low for a car of this age. The seller also notes that the car is complete with all of its hard-to-find parts, like body trim and door panels, which can be a real challenge to source for older vehicles. In terms of mechanical condition, the seller states that the car is in good running condition with a strong motor and transmission, as well as good brakes and tires. It's also a factory air car and even has a working 8-track player, which is a cool vintage feature that's sure to turn heads at car shows. One of the most impressive aspects of this Ventura is its unbelievably straight body, with perfectly aligned fender and door gaps. This suggests that the car has been well maintained and hasn't suffered any major accidents or damage over the years. The seller mentions that this Ventura would be a great project for the new year, as it would only need a light restoration to get it back to its former glory. They even provide an example image of what the car could look like with a bit of TLC, and it's definitely an inspiring sight. Plus, the seller notes that you can drive the car around while you work on it, which is a big plus for anyone who wants to enjoy their classic car while they restore it. Another great thing about this Ventura is that all of the registration and fees are paid, and the car is now smog exempt in California, which can be a big hurdle for older vehicles. The seller also has the pink slip in hand, which means that the title is clean and ready to be transferred to the new owner. At $8,900, this Pontiac Ventura is priced fairly for a rare and complete classic car with a strong mechanical condition. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's important to do your due diligence and get a thorough inspection before making a final decision. But if you're looking for a unique project car that you can enjoy while you work on it, this Ventura is definitely worth checking out. Overall, if you're a fan of classic American muscle cars and appreciate the rarity and authenticity of a car like this 1974 Pontiac Ventura, this listing is definitely worth a closer look. 10. We've got a real classic on our hands, a 1978 Chevrolet El Camino that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This vintage beauty is priced at $5,700, and from what the seller tells us, it seems like a solid deal for a car with some great features and a few fixable issues. First off, let's talk about the good stuff. The seller states that the El Camino runs and drives great, which is always a good sign. Under the hood, you'll find an older 350 crate engine paired with a new turbo 350 transmission, which should provide plenty of power and reliability. The car also has new 3.55 rear-end gears and a custom dual exhaust system, which should give it a nice throaty sound. The seller also mentions that all fluids have been recently changed, which is a plus for anyone looking for a car that's been well maintained. The body is described as straight with no rust, which is impressive for a car that's over 40 years old. The interior is also said to be very nice with new carpet, which suggests that the previous owners have taken good care of this El Camino. Other great features include the original blue plates, a trim package, cold AC, a stereo system, and power windows. The seller also notes that the car has passed smog every time for 13 years and has a current smog certificate, which is a big plus for anyone living in a state with strict emissions regulations. Now let's talk about the known issues that need repairs. The seller is upfront about these, which is always appreciated. The fuel gauge is not accurate, but the seller suspects it's the gauge itself and notes that the car has a new fuel sender. The heater is not warming up, which the seller suspects is due to a faulty heater control valve. The speedometer is noisy and not working, with the cable unhooked, and the speedometer head needs lubing. There's also an intermittent small rattle, an exhaust leak, and the dome lamp is inoperable. While these issues may seem like a lot, they're all relatively minor and fixable. None of them seem to affect the car's overall drivability or safety, and they could be great projects for a new owner who enjoys working on their car. At $5,700, this 1978 Chevrolet El Camino seems like a fair price for a classic car with a lot of potential. It's got a strong engine and transmission, a straight body, and a nice interior, plus some great features like cold AC and power windows. The known issues are all relatively minor and could be fixed with some time and effort. 11. We've got a real icon on our hands, a 1965 Ford Mustang that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This vintage pony car is priced at $10,000, and from what the seller tells us, it seems like a solid deal for a piece of American automotive history. First off, let's talk about the specs. This Mustang comes with a factory 4-speed manual transmission paired with a 200 cubic inch 6-cylinder motor. While some Mustang purists might prefer a V8, the 6-cylinder engine is still a reliable and efficient option that can provide plenty of fun on the road. The odometer shows 83,000 miles, which is relatively low for a car that's over 55 years old. One of the most striking features of this Mustang is its baby blue exterior with a white hardtop. The color combination is classic and eye-catching, and it's sure to turn heads wherever you go. The dark blue interior is also in great condition, with no seat rips or tears, which is impressive for a car of this age. The seller mentions that the top of the motor has been rebuilt as they tried to determine why the car kept overheating. It turned out to be a faulty radiator, which has since been replaced. This suggests that the previous owners have taken good care of this Mustang and have been proactive about addressing any issues that have come up. Now, let's talk about the reason for selling. The seller states that they're a pickup family and really don't have a need for a car. While it's always sad to see a classic Mustang go, it's understandable that sometimes life circumstances change and priorities shift. The seller does note that the car needs new tires, as the current BF Goodrich tires are starting to crack, which is a common issue with this brand. However, this is a relatively minor issue that can be easily addressed by a new owner. At $10,000, this 1965 Ford Mustang seems like a fair price for a classic car in good condition with a rebuilt motor and a desirable color combination. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's important to do your due diligence and get a thorough inspection before making a final decision. But if you're in the market for a vintage Mustang with some character and a solid mechanical condition, this listing is definitely worth checking out. Overall, if you're a fan of classic American muscle cars and have always dreamed of owning a first-generation Mustang, this 1965 model could be a great opportunity. With its iconic styling, rebuilt motor, and honest seller, it's definitely worth a closer look. Who knows? You could be cruising down the road in this baby blue beauty before you know it, turning heads and living out your classic car dreams. 12. We've got a real gem on our hands. A 1964 AMC Rambler that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This vintage sedan is priced at $5,000, and from what the seller tells us, it seems like a fantastic deal for a car that's been well maintained and has some great features. First off, let's talk about the specs. This Rambler comes with a 3.2L 196 OHV engine that's been rebuilt, which is a big plus for anyone looking for a reliable and powerful classic car. The transmission has also been rebuilt, and the car has a new clutch, brakes, and wheel cylinder, which suggests that the previous owners have taken good care of this Rambler and have invested in its mechanical well-being. One of the most impressive aspects of this Rambler is its body condition. The seller describes it as amazing, which is high praise for a car that's nearly 60 years old. The paint color is a beautiful blue, which is classic and timeless, and it's sure to turn heads wherever you go. The interior has also been updated with new upholstery, although the seller notes that there is a tear in the front seat. However, this is a relatively minor issue that could be easily addressed by a new owner. Other great features of this Rambler include new tires and a fully functioning electrical system. The seller notes that all signals, wipers, headlights, and other electrical components work and operate as intended, which is impressive for a car of this age. The seller also mentions that the car started right up and ran extremely well this past summer, although they haven't started or driven it since then. This suggests that the car has been stored properly and hasn't been subjected to any major wear and tear in recent months. One unique feature of this Rambler is its column manual transmission, which operates well according to the seller. This adds to the car's vintage charm and makes it a great option for anyone who enjoys the experience of driving a classic car with a manual transmission. At $5,000 or best offer, this 1964 AMC Rambler seems like a fantastic deal for a classic car in good condition with some great features and a strong mechanical pedigree. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's important to do your due diligence and get a thorough inspection before making a final decision. But if you're in the market for a vintage sedan with some character and a lot of potential, this listing is definitely worth checking out. 13. We've got a real beauty on our hands, a 1982 Cadillac DeVille that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This vintage coupe is priced at $8,500 or best offer, and from what the seller tells us, it seems like a fantastic deal for a car that's been well maintained and has some great features. First off, let's talk about the specs. This DeVille comes with a 4.1L V8 engine that runs and drives well, according to the seller. The odometer shows just 8,834 miles, which is incredibly low for a car that's over 40 years old. This suggests that the car has been well cared for and hasn't been subjected to a lot of wear and tear over the years. One of the most impressive aspects of this DeVille is its originality. The seller describes it as unmolested and notes that it's never been cut, which is a big plus for anyone looking for a classic car that's true to its original form. The paint color is a stunning red, which is classic and eye-catching, and it's sure to turn heads wherever you go. The seller also mentions that the car is up to date on its registration and comes with a clean title, which is important for anyone looking to buy a classic car without any legal or ownership issues. The car has also recently undergone a complete rear brake job and has a new battery, which suggests that the previous owner have been proactive about maintaining the car's mechanical well-being. Another great feature of this DeVille is its new white wall tires, which add to the car's vintage charm and give it a classic, elegant look. The seller doesn't mention anything about the interior condition, but based on the car's overall originality and low mileage, it's likely that the interior is in good shape as well. At $8,500 or best offer, this 1982 Cadillac DeVille seems like a fantastic deal for a classic car in good condition with some great features and a strong mechanical pedigree. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's important to do your due diligence and get a thorough inspection before making a final decision. But if you're in the market for a vintage coupe with some character and a lot of potential, this listing is definitely worth checking out. Overall, if you're a fan of classic American luxury cars and appreciate the craftsmanship and style of a bygone era, this 1982 Cadillac DeVille could be a great addition to your collection. 14. We've got a real gem on our hands, a 1963 Ford Falcon that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This vintage pickup truck is priced at $14,275, and from what the seller tells us, it seems like an incredible deal for a vehicle that's been meticulously restored and upgraded with some fantastic features. First off, let's talk about the specs. This Falcon comes with a 260 V8 engine paired with a 3-speed manual transmission, which is a classic combination that's sure to get your heart racing. The seller also mentions that the truck has factory Ford AC, which is a rare and desirable feature for a vehicle of this age. One of the most impressive aspects of this Falcon is the amount of work that's gone into restoring and upgrading it. The seller notes that all factory parts are either on the car or have been saved, which is a testament to their dedication to preserving the vehicle's originality. However, they've also made some smart upgrades, like a Pertronix ignition system, a new Edelbrock intake and AVS2 carburetor, and new belts, hoses, and other components. The radiator has also been flushed and tested, and the seller reports that the truck runs cool. The exterior of the Falcon has been repainted in its original Rangoon red color, and the seller notes that there's no body rust, and the body is straight. The stainless steel and chrome components are also described as being way above good, which suggests that they've been well maintained and restored. Inside, the Falcon has been outfitted with new ultra-leather red interior, including the seat, door panels, headliner, and sun visors. The original red dash has been repainted, and the glove box and heater box have been rebuilt with new hoses and air components. The seller has also installed a modern AM/FM radio, which is a nice touch for those who want to enjoy some tunes while cruising down the road. Under the hood, the Falcon has been upgraded with a new tune-up, and the seller has also redone the brakes, fuel system, front suspension, including control arms, shocks, and strut bushings, and other components. The truck is described as driving very worthy and comfortable at speed, which suggests that it's been well sorted and is ready to hit the road. The seller does note that the odometer has rolled over, so the actual mileage is unknown. However, they also point out that this is a 61-year-old truck, and it's not a throwaway 90s import. Instead, it's a classic vehicle that's been lovingly restored and upgraded, and it's sure to put a smile on the face of anyone who appreciates vintage trucks. 15. We've got a real treat for you, a 1969 Buick GS350 clone that's up for grabs on Craigslist. Now, I know what you're thinking. Bare metal? Is this thing even drivable? But hold on, because there's more to this story than meets the eye. First off, let's talk about the price. At $11,000, this GS350 clone isn't exactly a bargain basement deal. But when you consider all the work that's gone into it, it starts to make a bit more sense. The seller says that while the car might not have its final coat of paint, it's practically brand new under the hood and inside the cabin. Now, I know some of you might be skeptical about that claim, especially since the odometer is broken, but the seller seems to be pretty upfront about the car's condition. They mention that they're just losing interest in the project, and they're not in a rush to sell. So, what exactly has been done to this GS350 clone? Well, for starters, it's got a 350 Buick motor with all sorts of performance upgrades. We're talking a TA performance cam, intake, starter, and valve covers. The top end has been rebuilt with ported heads and a new valve train, so this thing should have plenty of power. But it's not just about the engine. The suspension has been completely overhauled with Speedway tubular A-arms, QA1 coilovers, drop spindles, and 11-inch disc brakes. And with less than 500 miles on all those new parts, you can bet this thing handles like a dream. Inside, the car has been given some much-needed attention too. The roof, trunk, and seat floors have all been replaced, so you won't have to worry about any rust or rot. And with a new American Auto Wire kit, all the electrics should be in tip-top shape. Of course, no muscle car is complete without a set of killer wheels, and this GS350 clone doesn't disappoint. It's rolling on a set of American Racing 200s with brand new tires, so you can hit the road in style. Now, I know some of you might be wondering about that clone designation. And it's true, this isn't a numbers-matching all-original GS350, but with all the work that's gone into it, does it really matter? This car has been built to drive, and drive hard. 16. Let me tell you about this 1980 Chevy Corvette I found on Craigslist for $12,500. This classic C3 Vetta is rocking that iconic white paint and comes with the legendary 350 V8 under the hood, paired with an automatic transmission. With 73,000 miles on the clock, that's actually pretty reasonable for a car that's over 40 years old. The seller states it's in good condition, and having a clean title is always a plus. These late C3 Corvettes might not be the most powerful of the bunch, thanks to those emission regulations of the era, but they've got that unmistakable swooping body style that just screams American sports car. The rear-wheel drive setup makes it a proper driver's car, and while $12,500 isn't exactly cheap, it's in the ballpark for a well-maintained C3 these days. Just keep in mind that like any 40-plus-year-old car, you'll want to check for the usual suspects: frame condition, any potential fiberglass issues, and make sure all the vacuum systems are working properly. But hey, if you're looking for a classic Corvette that you can actually drive and enjoy without breaking the bank, this could be your ticket to C3 ownership. 17. Let's talk about this interesting 1965 Mustang I found listed for $2,500. I've got to be straight with you. This one's definitely a project car, but there's some real potential here. We're looking at a rare A-Code 289 4V Mustang Coupe that's been sleeping since 1996, and while it's not perfect, there's a lot to work with. The good stuff first, it's got the desirable 289 4-barrel V8, power steering, and comes with some recent work done including new tires, fresh tune-up, oil change, a rebuilt original 4100 carb, new gas tank and sender, and a complete brake system overhaul. The seller's honest about it having a clean title and showing 30,085 miles. Now let's be real about the challenges. The car needs a driver's floor pan, pretty common for these old Mustangs, and there's a transmission gasket issue that needs addressing. The seller's listing it in fair condition, and that's probably accurate given its long storage and current state. For $2,500, you're getting an unrestored original A-code Mustang, which is getting harder to find these days. While it needs work, most of the major mechanical refreshing has been done, and it runs well with no smoke or concerning engine noises. The body's described as solid and straight, which is a huge plus. Just remember, this isn't a hop-in-and-go classic, it's a project that needs some love. But if you're looking for a genuine piece of Mustang history to restore, this A-code coupe could be a rewarding project, especially considering how valuable these cars are when fully restored. Just make sure you're ready for the work ahead, and maybe negotiate that price a bit given the needed repairs. 18. Let me tell you about this fascinating 1967 Ford Thunderbird that's popped up for $14,600. This isn't your typical T-Bird. We're looking at the rare four-door suicide door model, which was only produced for a few years, making this quite a special find. Finished in black with a vinyl top, this big luxury cruiser is showing 78,800 miles, and according to the seller, is in excellent condition. What's really cool is that it's reportedly all original, and those suicide doors are just pure 60s cool. The seller mentions it's been garage kept, which is always music to our ears for these classic cars. Now, while the seller's description is a bit brief and has some spelling issues, they're highlighting some important points. All power features are working, it's had a recent complete tune-up, and it's rolling on brand new tires. The interior is described as looking like new, which is impressive for a 56-year-old car. For $14,600, you're getting a pretty unique piece of Ford history. These four-door Thunderbirds were Ford's attempt at a luxury sedan to compete with Lincoln, and they're much rarer than their two-door siblings. The price seems fair for a well-maintained example, especially considering its reported condition and originality. Just remember to verify all the power features work. These cars had lots of electrical gadgets. Check for any rust, especially around that vinyl top, and make sure the suicide doors align properly. If everything checks out as described, this could be a really cool piece of 60s luxury that'll definitely turn heads at any car show. 19. Let's talk about this sweet 1985 Pontiac Trans Am that just popped up for $13,500. This is one of those third-gen F-bodies that's really starting to come into its own as a collector car, and this one sounds pretty solid. We're looking at a brown Trans Am, not the most common color, which makes it kind of unique, with the 5.0L tuned port injection V8. While these weren't the tire-shredding monsters of the earlier Trans Ams, that TPI system was pretty advanced for its time and gives these cars a really distinctive character. With 79,000 original miles, it's definitely been driven, but not abused. What's really impressive here is that everything is reported to be working, including the AC and heat, which can be a real pain point on these 80s GM cars. The seller seems pretty confident in the car's condition, listing it as excellent, and they're even open to trades for other classics, though they're specifically avoiding project cars, which suggests this one's ready to enjoy. For $13,500, you're getting a classic piece of 80s muscle that's becoming increasingly collectible. These third-gen Trans Ams are really starting to find their place in the market, and good ones are getting harder to find. The price seems fair for a well-maintained example with working AC and relatively low miles. Just remember to check those typical F-body trouble spots. T-tops for leaks if it has them, the condition of the interior plastics, they can get brittle with age, and make sure that TPI system is running right. If everything checks out, you could be cruising in some serious 80s style. And hey, they're right. It would make a pretty awesome Christmas present for the right car enthusiast. 20. Let me tell you about this sweet 1985 Mustang GT convertible I found for $8,500. This is a pretty special find. It's one of the last carbureted 5.0 Fox bodies before Ford switched to fuel injection, which makes it interesting for both collectors and modifiers. For $8,500, this actually seems like a pretty solid deal. The car's got 109,000 miles, which isn't too bad for a Fox body, and the seller's done some meaningful upgrades and maintenance. We're talking a new soft top, which is huge for a convertible, new brakes, full header back exhaust system, and fresh shocks. They've also kept up with basic maintenance like fluids and filters. What's really impressive is that all the creature comforts are working. The AC, heater, cruise control, and even the original AM/FM cassette player, totally 80s, right? Finding a Fox body with working AC is getting harder these days, so that's a big plus. The gray paint looks decent in the listing, and with a clean title and good interior, this could be a great entry into Fox body Mustang ownership. These carbureted 5.0s might not be as powerful as the later EFI models, but they've got tons of potential, and they're generally simpler to work on. For the price, you're getting a fun, manual transmission convertible that's ready to drive and enjoy. Just remember to check those typical Fox body trouble spots: floor pans, torque boxes, and strut towers for rust, and make sure that convertible top mechanism works smoothly. But overall, this looks like a pretty honest car for the money, and these things are only going up in value.